My name is Elisa. I am a member of the MBA admissions team here at Stanford, at the Stanford GSB. I'm joined by 3 panelists, and we hope to have a 4th joining during this time. We're excited to have you here today to talk about preparing for a career in education and impact. How things are going to go today is we have about 55 minutes together. I'm going to give you a brief introduction to the Stanford GSB, to our global community. I will introduce you to our panelists. I have some questions for them to start our conversation today. But you also have a chance in the Q&A pod as we start speaking, or if there's something particular that you would like answered today, feel free to ask questions along the way, and I will do my best to moderate and make sure your questions get answered. So again, I want to thank all of the panelists for joining us today, and all of you also. This is a really great turnout. We're excited to have all of you. So as I said, I wanted to talk a little bit about the global community here at the GSB, specifically because this is a career-focused discussion and panel today about preparing for a career in education and impact. We wanted to share the information we have on that, in the sense that 91% of students had job offers from the GSB 3 months post-graduation, with over 445 organizations hiring our Stanford MBAs for opportunities. These could be full-time or summer opportunities. A really interesting thing, and perhaps this is relevant to some of you on the call today, 71% of students made a pivot. That means they were in a certain industry before coming to the GSB and ended up doing something else after. Possibly due to something they were exposed to or learned about while at the GSB. So our panelists can share a little bit more about their career paths as we get to that. Because today is specifically around impact and education, an interesting stat here is that 19% of those who graduated are in socially responsible roles. 18% started new ventures, including some of our panelists here. And then of those new ventures, 12% actually turned out to be in healthcare most recently. For more information on career paths and even just to learn about our Career Management Center, I encourage you all to visit our webpage. You can search for GSB CMC, which is one of the acronyms for Career Management Center, one of the many acronyms here at the GSB, if you want to learn more. But again, hopefully that's just a teaser for you thinking about your career, thinking about where the GSB might help you or lead you on your journey. We are joined today by 4 wonderful panelists. I'm excited to have all of them here. Rather than me introduce each of them, I'm going to have them introduce themselves. So if each of you could, introduce yourself, talk about what you were doing before the GSB and what you're doing now after, or perhaps what you've done after and might be doing now, because you may have done more than one thing already after. Please do so. But I'd also like to queue up with our first question of, in addition to introducing yourself, please share with us perhaps what was your most impactful experience or memory from the GSB. So this could be a course you took, an extracurricular activity, a travel experience, whatever it may be. Just what is kind of most memorable or impactful to you during your time here. We'll just go in order. So starting with Anuja.
Hi, everyone. Welcome. So my name is Anuja Burns, and I graduated 2010, as you can see. So I've done a bunch of things. So, I went to MIT for my undergrad. I did engineering internships. And post-MIT, I worked at BCG. I was doing consulting and private equity, but I knew I wanted to change. So when I went to Stanford, my goal was to find a job that I loved. Post-Stanford, I ended up helping run an internet startup, and then I started a preschool. So I started a preschool in 2012, and I was so fortunate because I sold it right before COVID, early last year, to Bright Horizons, which is a huge public company. And now I'm running a nonprofit, and we're working on education in India. I'm also a CASA, where I work with foster youth and just doing a lot of volunteer work. And to answer the question, Eliza, so for me, I would say the way Stanford has impacted me is the community. So there's people who take the time to get to know you, they care, and they push your thinking. So when I was at Stanford, I was thinking like, I want this job I love. But I was on a very ambitious path prior to business school. And so I was still in that mindset. And so they had this opportunity to get a prestigious fellowship where I would be placed at the top of a school district, and you help implement change in a school from above. And I talked to my friend John. He was in the joint degree program with me, the education MBA joint degree program. And I was like, John, I'm so excited. They have this road residency. This is perfect for me. And he was like, Anuja, you're crazy. That's just consulting in a school district. Like, you like working with kids. That's what makes you happy. Like, why are you going back into consulting? And I was like, you're right. And, just that one conversation, it helped me think about what I really wanted to do. And then I, did a business plan to start a school, and, I did start a school. So I just think that community of people who push your thinking is, very unique to Stanford.
Great, thank you. Christina, could you introduce yourself and also share your most memorable experience from the GSB?
Sure. Hi, everybody. It is great to be here. And as you can see, I'm the class of 2019. I went to Amherst College for undergrad and I studied psychology. And right after graduating from college in 2013, I taught with Teach for America in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. I was a 6th and 7th grade math teacher. And after that, I decided to go into consulting. I, kind of was trying to make a pivot from education and try to kind of like hone my business skills a little bit. So I decided to go into consulting, and then from there went to the GSB, thought that I would go into education consulting afterward, or nonprofit consulting, but I decided to pursue the Social Innovation Fellowship, which I'm sure we'll talk about a bit today because Claire is also a fellow. But I received funding to launch my own venture, Hopebound, which I'm currently working on, and we are an adolescent mental health nonprofit. So we partner with middle schools and high schools and connect them with essentially free weekly therapy for the kids. So we focus on schools who don't have a budget for a school-based mental health professional on the campus. And I've been doing that for 2 years, which has been great so far. And let's see, my favorite or one of my most impactful experiences, it is hard to think about, but the first thing that came to mind was probably the class Touchy-Feely, which I'm sure a lot of you all have heard of. But for me, I think I still think back to it really often and just think about a lot of the things I learned about myself as a person. And I actually still meet every month with what's called the support group. So it's 2 people from your Touchy-Feely group that you meet with over the retreat weekend. But anyway, it's been about 2 years, as I said, and we still meet monthly. So clearly it's had an impact on me. So I felt like that was a really valuable experience.
Great, thank you for sharing. Claire, thanks for joining. If you could also introduce yourself and share with us your most memorable or impactful experience from the GSB, that'd be great.
Yeah. I'm Claire. Thanks for having me. I did my undergrad at Stanford and then also taught in Louisiana. Like Christina, I was in New Orleans, taught high school math, and did and was an administrator at a school, public charter high school there, and had really believed in schools as a unit of change. Like a lot of other panelists here, it's really exciting to hear kind of how everybody's gotten into the space. And I had also just found that we were graduating kids and they were dropping off after high school. So the college persistence and the workforce connectedness issues felt very real. And so I wanted to zoom out, understand different school models, and do the joint degree program to kind of better understand what was going on outside of K-12 and in higher ed and in workforce development, to sort of reevaluate where my place of leverage might be to ensure that our young people are in more stable lives in their mid-20s. And so through the same program that Christina referenced, I founded a nonprofit that is a national it's a national organization that strengthens the school to work pipeline. So we have a set of resources and advisory support directly for young people in and around high school. And then we have an institutional support practice where we help school districts build out extension programs to help plug some of the gaps where students fall through the cracks. And there are a lot of really influential moments I actually think the SIF, the Social Innovation Fund application process, was really meaningful. I hadn't really had formal training before with, making slide decks or pitches or trying to kind of really clearly articulate pain points and all the different kind of components of articulating where there's a need and where I might support. And so it felt like the one-on-one support that I got through that process was really rigorous and really personalized. And I don't know that I'd been pushed to be as good of a writer in school in the past. So it felt like a pocket of many different pockets like that exist at school where kind of if you take initiative, there's a ton of support.
Great. Thanks for sharing that. Danielle, if you could introduce yourself and share your most memorable or impactful experience, that'd be great. And you are a recent grad, so you should have that top of mind, hopefully.
Yes, thank you very much for the invitation. I'm Danielle, I'm from Colombia. I just graduated from the MBA Master in Education joint degree a month ago. Before the GSB, I did investment banking 2 years in New York and Mexico. And then I joined a higher education financing startup back in Colombia. And then I founded a nonprofit, which is a career development mentorship program that we help low-income college students decide what they want to do with their lives with Stanford Design Your Life methodology, and they help them get the best jobs. And I did that 2 years full time before coming to the GSB, and I was a university professor, adjunct professor also. For me, the GSB was just an incredible experience, and just want to highlight the uniqueness of the joint degree. It's an incredible program, not only because it gives you a lot of flexibility on how you want to choose your electives from the ed school, and basically, literally, there's only one required class and the rest is elective, so you tailor it towards your interest. Mine is education, entrepreneurship, and investing. And also, for me, the Impact Fund was an incredible experience. I was part of the education team, and then learning just from all the themes around impact investing. And very fortunate because we could invest in a Colombian edtech startup actually. So it was a cool experience. And then the other highlight will be the Arbuckle Fellows program. I think it's the most unique program at the GSB. It's a incredible leadership development program, and just an intense self-awareness introspection process throughout the entire year of the program. I highly suggest everyone to do it, to apply. It makes you, I think, makes you a better person, better manager, better leader. Definitely, I think will be the thing that I will cherish the most from the experience. Apart from that, so the community, which is incredible, but that program was very impactful.
Great. Thanks for sharing, Danielle. I actually, just since you answered about that, I do want to clarify for everyone on, could you share a little bit more about the Arbuckle Fellows and just what their role is, especially how they mentor the first years and just what that role is like?
Sure. So basically, the first year, there's a class called Leadership Labs, where basically we have a squad of 6 MBA ones, and they are led by an MBA 2 who's an Arbuckle Fellow. And basically, this, as an MBA 2, you're trained. It's a methodology called coactive coaching. It's a coaching methodology through coaching through inquiry and curiosity. And basically, we have that. After we do our first year, we apply to the program. Around 70 are selected, 6 MBA ones per fellow. And then we get this very intense training where we first facilitate this class as a fellow of the MBA ones, and then we become coaches to 3 MBA ones in our third quarter, fifth quarter, I think, fourth and fifth quarter. And basically, it's an intense one-on-one coaching, 5 or 6 coaching sessions with 3 different MBA ones, different than the ones from the first class. So it's an intense coaching program that we go through.
Great. Thanks for explaining that, just because I have a feeling most of the people on have probably not heard of the Arbuckle Fellows before. So one of the questions we have is around the joint degree, which I think many of you did. I know Anuja and Claire mentioned it. I know Daniel did it. Christina, did you do? No. Okay. So let's focus this question then to Anuja and Claire. If you guys could speak to just how did your decision process go in terms of deciding to do the joint degree? And did it help with your career goals, career aspirations specifically? So Anuja, why don't we start with you?
Yeah, sure. So it had a huge impact on my career because through the joint degree program I did, I think, an independent study with an education professor, and that's where I did my business plan to start my school. So it was in one of those classes. We had in the education class, we had a guest speaker, and we did a case study on a woman who started a middle school in Mountain View. And I talked to her and I said, I want to start my own school. This sounds so cool. And she said, oh, well, do a business plan, like work it out, and going through that process will really help you. And then you can just start one. And I was like, okay, so that's what I did. And because the GSB and the ed school are so flexible, you do have that opportunity to sort of create the curriculum you want. And looking back at my business plan I made, I had a timeline in it. And I think in my timeline, I said I would open doors September 2012 of my school, and I ended up starting it October 2012. So it was sort of cool that I was able to, bring this plan to life.
Great, thanks. Claire, do you want to share just how you decided to do the joint degree and how did it help you in your career?
Yeah, I was pretty involved in education in undergrad at Stanford, so I didn't feel like, I felt like I had some exposure to professors already, but I came in sort of feeling like, so you can apply at the outset, or you can start your MBA and then apply. And I had applied at the very beginning. I think first and foremost, it was just a really intentional decision that I wanted to pursue education as a career. And the GSB can pull you in a lot of different directions. And I felt like the commitment to the ed school and to the group that was in the joint degree program was a really helpful anchor for me. I felt like I made really good friends we still continue to meet in a small group to we're all in, some are in investing, some are working in product, and just kind of all over the map in education, but a really helpful set of kind of professional friendships, I would say, that continue to serve me. And it was just a helpful informal space when I was there too, to be able to kind of, like Anuja is talking about, kind of lean on different professors, lean on students, and be able to explore different things with the sort of added lens of education. And I had previously studied education with more of a teaching lens, and this felt more of like an organizational lens with a couple different pathways, which was just sort of coming into the business school with this idea that I maybe wanted to think about building a business and managing people. It was just a helpful layer that was more kind of industry specific.
Great, thanks for sharing that. Christina, I want to gear the next question towards you to start with answering. And again, any of the panelists feel free to chime in, but we have a question around just how does the GSB support you if you are starting something in social impact? So if you have an idea, but maybe not a budget, and you mentioned already the fellowship that you received and were part of. So if you could share just about that, but also in any other ways that the GSB may have helped you on your journey towards starting something specifically in social impact.
Yeah, definitely. So just to share a little bit more about the Social Innovation Fellowship. So each year there are 2 people that are awarded the fellowship. And they, as of last year, it was only for people launching nonprofits, but now it is for people who are just launching social ventures in general. So they could be for-profit or nonprofit. Can everyone hear me?
Yep.
I just realized it might have frozen. Okay, for a second I thought it froze because the 3 faces I saw were like, so they were listening intently to me, I guess. I won't go too much into that right now. I know that the link was sent out in the chat, and because it is only 2 people each year, I think it might serve me better to share more about the other options as well. So for that fellowship, however, they do provide you $110,000 and a year of advising to launch it. So it's a really wonderful opportunity. But some of the other opportunities that could take place is one over the summer. So if you want to test out some of your ideas to launch your own social impact venture, or if you want to join one that already exists, there's funding that the CMC, the Career Management Center, as well as the center that's over social innovation and entrepreneurship provides for you to not be concerned about the salary that you're paid over the summer. So they will essentially like double your salary so that it's on par with what your other classmates would be making in a more traditional internship. So that's really just unique, and I think it shows how intentional the GSB is about trying to remove any financial barriers to go into social impact. Another example beyond the internships and beyond the fellowship is the loan forgiveness program. So if you decide to enter into a social impact career, and if you are making below a certain cutoff, and I won't quote any specific numbers because it might have changed, but your loans could be forgiven. So that's just a third example of how the GSB really does take the budget part of it that was mentioned in the question into account.
Great, thanks for sharing. That's really helpful, I think, for those on the call to hear that. And just to chime in a little bit about loan forgiveness, I also am not going to say an exact number just because that always can change, but I encourage you, if you want to learn about that program, it is something that is offered. So were you to come to the GSB and take on loans and then go work in a nonprofit or in the public sector, you could be eligible then for this loan forgiveness program, which again is one of the ways this GSB is committed to helping those pursue careers in this area. So I do want to jump, there was a question and they're all kind of changing, but there was one specifically around clubs or extracurriculars that may have helped kind of shape you or exposed you to certain ideas or people or things throughout. So if you could speak to, and we'll start with Danielle, what clubs or extracurriculars you may have been involved in that also kind of helped you on your path towards social impact or education.
I think, as I mentioned, I think Arbuckle Fellows, Impact Fund, and joint degree, like those three things it's a big commitment already. Right. Then the other ones, Education Club is a nice social thing to basically meet people from the GSB interested in education and from the ed school that are also, I think they can join. Basically a newsletter of things related, job opportunities, and just information on it, on education. Then everything related to the Social Innovation Center, especially the having good relation and good, like an advisor that you can, like for me was Naomi Bayer, for example, and just having regular catch-ups with her, just to tell her the things I was doing. She always tried to connect me with people that were relevant, send me stuff that was relevant to my interests. At the end, more than like I think joining a club is good because there's that. You'll see who are people interested in the theme that you're. But at the end, it's gonna be like literally you can do many things outside of a club and just literally doing independent projects or working outside part time, or doing an internship or doing a special project with any institution you're interested. For example, with the Impact Fund, I met the advisor of the Impact Fund is Al Ventures, which is the largest EdTech VC fund. They advise the education team. They're mostly GSBers. And just getting to know them through the Impact Fund, I then say, hey, I want to work with you guys to help you invest in Latin America. That was one of the most impactful experiences for me, and I got credits for that, and I just got an incredible relationship with them and learned a lot from them. So I think just knowing that while you're a student, and the GSB, GSE, or GSE credential are just huge. So the amount of opportunities that come to you and that you can do on the side are literally unique. So I would highly encourage everyone to be creative and think, okay, what am I interested in? What institutions or the people I want to reach out, and why am I unique for in my theme, and just tell a good story to get and create the opportunity that you want based on your interest.
Great, thanks. Claire, could you chime in and share maybe a club or extracurricular that influenced you or helped you during your time at the GSB?
Yeah. I actually didn't formally join a lot of clubs. I sort of didn't want to be spread too thin. And so I focused a lot on taking a lot of classes across the GSB and the School of Education. And I went to a lot of office hours, like sort of got a good read. These are sort of like informal things to get involved in, but got a good read quickly on kind of which professors were really invested in student growth. And then I did a few different independent studies and internships as kind of mini tests to like answer a couple questions for myself about my career. So like, did I want to start my own school? Did I want to start a school from within a network? What were different models? How could I do projects with those types of institutions to really get to know them with professors that would help me kind of pull apart some different themes? And and then I spent a lot of time getting to know my classmates and trying to carve out time to sort of like learn more about their background. I sort of only knew teaching and working in schools, and learned a ton from other people's experiences in terms of how to build or not build culture across different industries, just sort of things like that from informal conversations. And I found the summer internship program through Smith that Christina, I think, referenced really, really useful, because that also that was a subsidized nonprofit internship. I worked for a venture philanthropy fund that supported schools. So it was a better chance for me to kind of understand 30,000-foot view. Did that feel engaging and meaningful to me? And was part of a kind of network of classmates who had also participated in that program. So that felt like a good way to sort of pressure test some things and have some folks to be able to reflect with. But I think sort of throughout, it was either formal or informal ways to just have conversations with people and use the opportunity to be more self-reflective that I didn't feel like I had when I was, working and more kind of focused on my job.
Great. Thanks. Christina, could you share if there was, I guess, an experience, whether it's extracurricular club related, that also helped you along the way? And if it's been already mentioned, you can say that too.
Yeah, I mean, I think honestly, I would say I am like Claire, where I don't know if it came from like being burnt out as a teacher in the past, but I just like really wanted to conserve my energy and be intentional. So I didn't really join any clubs. The one extracurricular in which I was really involved was the BBSA, so the Black Business Student Association. So there's, tons of different affinity groups, and I was able to help lead the revival of the annual conference when I was there. So I think that was a really great, experience in just leadership, public speaking, dealing with logistics and operations, which has served me well now running my own business. But I would say the one other thing I will make a note of, it was a class, but it's called Social Ventures Practicum. So it's kind of like Startup Garage, which you all may have heard of, but it's focused on social ventures in particular. And I actually was able to recruit 6 different students from all across the Stanford campus, undergrad, different grad programs, to help work on my idea for Hopebound. And that was my first time really being able to like manage people. It was quite an interesting experience. Learned a lot of things so that I could be a lot better at it now. But did just want to note that. But I would say no other specific clubs as related to social impact.
Christina, I have a question. Was the social venture practicum one quarter, or was that over multiple quarters?
Yeah, it was over one quarter. And it was taught by 2 professors, one Bill Meehan, who has more of like a consulting background, and then another one, Kim Yonker, or Kim Starkey now, and she's focused more on like philanthropy. So it was a really interesting combination of the 2.
Great, thanks for sharing. We have a question that's been kind of upvoted to, what is it that caught you most off guard when you started business school? So what has surprised you most about the GSB? And you can feel free to answer that. I'll probably start with Daniel since you're the most recent graduate of the program, but I also want to, for many of you, of our panelists, so for many of you, it was a change in terms of coming to business school from what you were doing before. And there is another question, so feel free to kind of what surprised you, but also in your first year, maybe share what that adjustment was like. So in addition to your surprise, what helped you adjust to being in business school, especially if you were pivoting from a different industry. So again, we'll start with Daniel.
Sure. So I think the intensity of the first couple quarters, everything, it's a lot of things. Basically, yeah, there's a lot of incredible, unique opportunities. You think that every coffee chat, every BBL like events in the afternoons, every speaker, they're like, oh, this is like probably one of the most unique experiences I've ever had, to meet this person or hear this person talk. So if any of you are intellectually curious and like different things, it'll be a muscle of practicing what you really understand. Okay, what am I here for, and what am I going to spend my limited time? And that involves like personal stuff, friends, classes, BBLs, working on independent projects. So that's the first thing. Then the first year classes are very, depends on the level and the level of experience each person comes with, but they could be more bit more traditional than when you think, and at the end it's kind of a core curriculum of things that you gotta go through. For me, I started kind of working part-time since second quarter probably, and basically it was really good that at the end the grades at the GSB don't matter that much. If you want to do great, you can go and try to be an Arbuckle Fellow, an RJ Miller, which is like top 10%. But if you just want to pass, you can only pass. I think that's one of the misconceptions maybe, is that it's very hard. The classes are hard, and yeah, to get good grades, maybe you got to study and do a bunch of stuff. But if you just want to pass and focus on certain classes, or in others, maybe don't focus much and just do the bare minimum because you want to put your time to non-academic stuff, you can do it, and that gives you a lot of freedom. And I think that makes the community be much stronger, and the people wanting to all help each other. I never felt any type of competitiveness in terms of my classmates in a class, just helping each other. And I think that's great. And that's, yeah. After the first quarter, because first quarter, you got to get your first classes and make sure that you pass and you're not in academic probation. But after the first quarter, I never felt kind of a lot of stress in terms of academics. I think that's a huge thing for the program.
Great, thanks for sharing. I'd love for each of the panelists to answer this, just what had surprised you most, and then maybe any tips or learnings from your first year. So Anuja, why don't we go around, at least how I see you guys go around.
Yeah, I would echo a lot of what Daniel said, but for me, I do remember thinking it was quite rigorous. It was much busier than I was expecting, because I don't know if people still say it, but people would say, oh, business school, it's sort of a vacation, or it's fun, or something, a lot of people come when you're coming from finance and working these 80-hour weeks. I thought, I'm burnt out, I need a break. But it was still incredibly busy, but in a much different way, in a much more engaging way, a fun way. And, there's classes and there's parties and clubs and just everything, travel, experiences. And my classmates, they're like, hey, it's Tuesday, let's go to Vegas for the night, come back on Wednesday. I don't know if it's still the same, but balancing all of that and getting over this FOMO, right? The fear of missing out, and learning how to really focus your efforts on the people you want to spend time with, and the classes you want to spend time with, and the trips. And just because everyone's going to the World Cup doesn't mean you have to go, and so I think that was like not overwhelming, but maybe. And then once you figure it out, you have your core group, you learn more about who you are. And then I think those are the friendships and relationships you take with you when you leave the GSB.
Christina, could you share?
Yeah, I feel like I could just say ditto to all of that, honestly. Yeah, I think for me, I was really taken aback by just how busy it was. I remember it was the first time that I was really glued to my calendar. And it's like kind of funny thinking back to it, but like Daniel was talking about the coffee chats and all of that, but even the social things are on your calendar. Like everyone just sends a calendar invite for everything. And I wasn't used to that before. So it was the kind of thing where it was like, all right, it's Monday at 10 a.m. Let me check my calendar to remind myself, what am I doing, at 1 p.m. today? Like, so it was very, very busy, but in a good way, very exciting, so many different unique opportunities, but it kind of felt like constant activity. So I think the first year I kind of did let myself, like Claire mentioned, you get pulled in a lot of different directions. I let myself get pulled in a lot of different directions. The second year, I was able to be more intentional and figure out what I wanted to say yes to. So that's what I would say, kind of, echoing the same theme that's been shared so far.
Great. And Claire, could you also chime in if there's anything else to add in terms of what surprised you and any tips in your first year that you learned?
Yeah, probably two big things. One, I had a really hard time with the fact that it felt like I had gone from this place where everything I did was so other people could be successful to being like only worried about myself. And grad school is just like very self-indulgent, and that's wonderful. And I think it took me a little while to name that and feel okay about it. And I think once I sort of was like, this is just a different time in your life and you're here to learn so that you can be more useful to people in the future. That was a sort of helpful mindset shift for me. But I think because of what these folks have said around just being so busy, it's easy to sort of be distracted and not give yourself enough time to pay attention to kind of how you're feeling about the transition. And then the second thing is that I found the core classes really hard. And I was acutely aware of what good teaching looked like. And I was sort of like, lectures are really hard for me to learn in. And I don't know that I'm absorbing all of the sort of financial literacy that I came here to learn. And a lot of folks in the class know a lot more than I do. And so I felt a little bit insecure actually in the beginning. And I think over time started to feel like, okay, this is part of a larger experience. I'm learning these things. They're new to me. That's okay. And also some of the other people management things and EQ things that maybe I have more exposure to in managing other adults or classrooms or things like that are going to be relevant at some point. And so I think it was just sort of being okay with, being challenged and feeling like, I think if I were to give some advice around that, it's just sort of like trusting the process and sort of feeling like even if you don't feel really confident in the moment, that your strengths will play out in different ways across the 2 years or 3 or however long you spend earning your degree.
Great, thanks for sharing. We have a question around global experiences and specifically whether any of you did pursue or fulfill your global experience requirement with a focus on social impact or education, which I don't know, but I'd love for some of you to share about that. So Christina, could you share what you did to fulfill your global experience requirement? And actually, before you answer, just for everyone on the call, because this was a question, some of you might be wondering what is the global experience requirement, which you can Google and find you can find about more information online. But briefly, there's a requirement for those who come to the GSB to spend time in a country they've never lived in or worked in before. And this can be fulfilled in many different ways, from a global study trip to another acronym called a GMIX, which is a 1-month internship. So I'm going to just throw that out there just to clarify for those on the call who maybe didn't know what that is. So Christina, if you could share how did you fulfill your global experience requirement, that'd be great.
Sure. So I went to Greece, which was amazing. Went during the springtime, and I think Greece, and who knows, there might be someone here from there, but at least to me, I just thought of it as, okay, this beautiful tourist destination, but what we focused on, what we learned about was how the debt crisis had impacted the inequity in healthcare for Greek people. So it was extremely eye-opening, and I would say it was related to, how I ultimately decided that accessibility when it comes to mental health was really important to me, and that's something I didn't see in the students that I work with every day as a teacher. So I think it just opened my eyes to basically how, when there is a debt crisis, how tourism tries to kind of offset some of those impacts, but who really ends up getting, impacted the most are the people who live there, and that healthcare, as challenging as it can be in the United States, is definitely not something to be taken for granted at all. So yeah, it was a very interesting experience.
Great. Could any of the other panelists, I can pick on you, but anyone want to share about their global experience?
I can share mine. So I went to Thailand and Cambodia, and we were focused on human trafficking. So it was pretty intense. And part of the global study trip, we were actually passing out condoms in the red light district in Thailand, and was able to talk to sex workers and just really understand all the societal factors and everything that went into these people's lives. And it was really interesting. And I was part of a club at the GSB where we're focused on human trafficking and ways we can help. And so super interesting. And, I think what has stuck with me is just meeting people who are similarly passionate and who cared, and having these, conversations was incredible.
Great, thanks. Danielle, could you share maybe how things changed for global experiences, specifically, travel was impacted in the past year with COVID. So could you share how you fulfilled a global experience requirement?
I was very lucky because I did mine in December of my first year. So I went to Brazil and did a entrepreneurship study trip. But then I did my summer. I was going to go to Brazil to work for a private K-12 network, and then to Colombia to work for a nonprofit charter school, and I had to do both virtually. So I did SMIF, Social Management Innovation Fellowship, I think. And basically it's a stipend that they gave me, I think $1,300 a week for 10 weeks. And literally they paid me for me to work with these two organizations. I stayed on some, during COVID, I stayed in Palo Alto and worked virtually from there. I think a lot of, maybe half of my class pre-COVID fulfilled their study trip, and then the others did virtual experiences. I think 2-3 day virtual sessions with some of the speakers that were gonna be in the country, or speak in the country where they were gonna go. But I would say, from hopefully everyone can all travel in the next year or in the next 2 years. But I think the global study trips are just an incredible experience because they're very well run, not only the logistically, but the quality of the speakers is just incredible. And the MBA2s lead the study trips, and they put a lot of work into it. And most of the people that lead it, either they're from that country or very interested in that country. And then the GSB admin just facilitates a lot of the alumni networks to get the best speakers, just like the best of the best speakers and experiences in those trips. And you have a lot of fun. There's some partying involved and everything. So it's just a great combination of, these are 30 student trips. So you create a great bond with the people that go to the trips.
Great, thanks for sharing. Claire, could you share how you fulfilled your global experience requirement?
Yeah, I went to Singapore and Indonesia, and our trip was focused on ride sharing and ride hailing and the growth of the gig economy. And so fairly different from different sort of maybe education focused initiatives. And in reflecting on different classes that I found most valuable at school, some of them were just completely different from anything that I had known previously. And I think actually exposure to stuff in the for-profit sector and in different pockets was just really helped me push my thinking. And kind of one of the reasons I went to school in the first place is because I didn't know what I didn't know. And so I actually think, we met a looking back, it's sort of crazy the sort of people and things that you're exposed to, people in different places of power in government. Talked a ton about how politics influences different business decisions in Indonesia, where there are different sort of pockets of corruption, and just sort of thinking about, like, I was also thinking about the politics of education reform and just different ways that they had approached challenges felt like a useful kind of new lens.
Great, thanks for sharing. There is one question, and I think Danielle, you were involved in this. You mentioned the Social Impact Fund. If you could just share a little bit more about what that is and how, as a student, you can get involved in that. Is it a course, or is it more treated like a club? If you could just share a little bit about the Social Impact Fund.
Sure. So it's a club that you have to apply. I think it's last year was I think it's maybe there's like 7 groups within the fund: education, healthcare, fintech, etc. There's 7 groups, and each group has between 6 and 7 students who are mostly first years. Each group is led by an MBA too. And basically, I think last year the acceptance rate was like 30% or 20%. Like, a lot of people apply. It's basically just an incredible investing experience, like the most similar thing to VC. So you apply in November, December of your first year. You have to interview with your team leader. Each team leader creates their own group, and then basically you go through the entire experience of sourcing companies in your field. So you talk with impact fund, with funds that invest in your education. So you talk with all the education VCs for them to send you deals. And basically you define a theme within the group. You talk with the founders, and then you decide which ones you want to invest, and then you vote internally as a group. And then the top 2 startups, these are early stages, are seed and Series A startups that are raising funds. And then the top 2 startups of every group, you take them to an investment committee. Investment committee is composed by some faculty members and just like very experienced investors in the impact investing community, and then you pitch those to impact to investment committee, and then everyone votes, both the investment committee members and the other team members. So that good things that you go through the entire process, even if your deal or the company you're pitching, if they don't pass, you see the entire thing, the entire process of everyone pitching, and the back and forth of questions between the investment committee members and the team, the people from the fund. And at the end, the fund chooses between 2 and 4 startups every year, and they get a $50,000 investment, more or less. And actually, a lot of people that do that, and then they have the experience to then get a job in impact investing or in venture capital. So I think it's the best way for those that want to get into an investing role. It's just the most incredible way to do it, and then get a summer job at a fund, and then hopefully get a full-time offer post GSB.
Great, thanks for sharing more about that. We have 5 minutes left together. I want to pose one more question to all 4 panelists, which is asked by someone in the audience named Brandon, who just said, "What do you wish you did while at the GSB? Do you have any regrets?" So is there anything you, I don't know, wish you had done more of, or just had more time to do? Because I know time is always the biggest commodity here, but I'd love for each of you to just quickly go around and share whether there is something you wish you had done more of while you were here. So Anuja, why don't we start with you?
Yeah, I think, well, after hearing Danielle talk so glowingly about the Arbuckle Fellows, it's like, man, I wish I did that, because I just felt like I was so busy with the joint degree program, but coaching and sort of that reflection and all these sorts of skills I think are so valuable. And there are things that I'm learning now that have helped me immensely in my personal life and at work. And so if I was able to learn more of those leadership skills and that sort of the coaching model at the GSB, I think that would have been cool.
Great. Christina.
Yeah, so I would say if there are any other introverts out there, I actually do regret not socializing enough. I wish I could have found a way to make it feel like more sustainable for me. I think I'm not the kind of person that would go out on a Tuesday night, but I know there were other people like me too. So I think like I definitely, have a handful of really good friends, but I think there are more people that were different than me that I could have gotten to know better. So I wish I would have gotten out of my comfort zone a little bit on the social front for sure.
Claire?
There are a couple classes called, like, for example, Startup Garage, that help train you in this sort of framework for understanding understanding pain points and developing. Maybe I can send some info to the chat. Going through the sort of product design process for need finding, and I think I at sort of different junctures in evolving our business, I have wished that I had a better understanding of doing UX research and really precisely following a process where we are understanding what the need is and where there are opportunities for us to support. And so I would encourage, even if you don't think you want to pursue entrepreneurship, there are some really, really high quality classes around like Lean Launchpad as well, around just kind of what you need to start a business or how you start to understand pain points that seem to be really relevant now. And I sort of wish I had taken more advantage of them then.
Great. And Danielle, I know you just completed your degree, but anything that you already wish you had done while you were in school?
Yeah, like of course the last year was crazy, but the unfortunate thing about for COVID is that it was just more difficult to meet more people, especially the people that I didn't got close to in the first year. So it's difficult. Our class is 420 people, and then the class below and above, like there's a lot of people to meet, a lot of incredible people, and yeah, for me the regret is kind of staying with the kind of the groups or the people that I met in the first year. So I would encourage everyone just to try to reach out as much as possible, whatever time you want to put into that. But just every person is incredibly special, and if they get into the GSB, there's something really unique about them. And for me, what I always thought was, I wanna meet that person and try to understand what makes that person unique, because the admission saw something special in that person. And every time the more you meet, you're like amazed with the quality of the people that come to this place.
Thank you so much for sharing. I want to thank all four of you for joining us today. This was an amazing panel, and I know I learned a lot. I hope that everyone who attended learned a lot. I'm sharing my screen one more time just to encourage everyone who's on to continue your journey at mystanford.mba, where you can learn more about clubs, courses. You can start to track your application if you are applying. Our deadlines for the next year are already posted. And I also encourage you, if you're joining us today, to look at our list of events for more panels. If you're interested in specifically admissions information, we have information sessions offered throughout the summer also. So again, I want to just thank all the panelists for joining us. I want to thank all of you, wherever you may be in the world, again, for joining us for this session. We appreciate your time and hope to see you again soon. Thank you, everyone.